Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Mr. Zombie here with a new video for you. Welcome to part 15 of What If Izuku Had a Villain Quirk. I just wanted to greet you guys by saying sit back and relax. You're in for a treat. So, we begin. At the sound of the announcement, the two took off towards the end of the combat zone. Both knew that their chances of passing would be greater if they simply avoided their homeroom teacher. Izuku knew that the man excelled in hand-to-hand combat, especially when going up against smaller numbers or one-on-one. This did not mean that they were unprepared for a fight. Momo had created a bow staff and some wraps so Izuku could use his martial arts knowledge without risking harm from his own attacks. The two had planned thoroughly for the exam and could only hope that they would be able to scrape by and pass the practical test. The two moved at a jogging pace, not wanting to encounter Aizawa, but knowing that wasting their stamina was not wise. Midoriya already had his goggles on. In the case he would already be able to use his quirk, he would need them to see through the thick vapor. The atmosphere around them only grew more tense the longer they had encountered Eraserhead. The tension was only interrupted by fear as a familiar capture wrapped around the goggled teen, repelled them backwards into a wall of a building. The groan of pain escaping him. Yaoyorozu ran to him, helping him up from where he fell on the ground. The duo gazed at the origin of the bandage-like appendages, anxiously returning the gaze to the two glowing crimson eyes. As I expected, both of you are analysts, and had already determined that I was picked to face off against you specifically to render your quirks useless. In that plan, I'm guessing you thought you could just avoid me. The greasy-haired man chuckled as he stared at his students. Well, sorry, brats, but I'm not that easy to avoid or run away from. The man's capture tool shot out at them, and they both narrowly dodged the attack. Izuku attempted to use his stun gas combo, only for his quirk to be nullified at the last moment. The hero instantly lunged towards him and grabbed him by his collar, throwing him at Momo and launching them both back. The duo got back up and charged at their teacher. The raven-haired girl sweeping her staff low at their teacher's knees, instinctively making him jump to dodge it. In midair, the jungle-haired boy slammed the heel of his palm into the solar plexus of their teacher, briefly stunning him. However, he was back to nullifying their quirks before they could even think about using them. The process continued. The duo kept landing glancing blows on their teacher while they were receiving bruising ones in return. You two aren't too bad, but you're both far from pro-hero ready. The capture tool successfully caught them both, Yaoyorozu by her ankles and Izuku by his wrists. Both your fighting styles are unrefined and inexperienced. Even when you landed a hit on me, the power of it was unbalanced, allowing me to recover from it quickly. Aizawa lifted his goggles, allowing his eyes to bore into his students. He brought his students closer, keeping them just beyond physical reach. The man highly doubted that they could do anything to him physically, but he wanted to stay on the safe side. You're right, Aizawa-sensei. Our fighting styles aren't ready, and we may overuse and rely on our quirks too much. Crimson eyes briefly flickered over to the student he had bound by his wrists. But you're also right about us being analysts, the best in our class. Confusion and annoyance crossed the pro-hero's face as he turned to the female student, who threw a face full of sand at their sensei. He clutched his eyes and screamed in pain as the tiny particles made contact with his exposed eyes, cursing his earlier actions. Midoriya let out a concentrated blast of his fear toxin, blasting their teacher away and loosening the capture tool's hold upon them. The hero wiped his eyes and opened them, struggling to keep them open. The greasy-haired man's face paled slightly at whatever hallucination he began to see. Quiet murmurs of, "It's not real," came from him as he tried his hardest to fight the poison. Suddenly, the thud of a bow staff smacked his head, echoing in the area as he flung onto his back. In his daze from the blow and the fear-induced mirages he was experiencing, the student team managed to truss up their opponent in handcuffs, rope, and a blindfold. As a final touch, Izuku forcefully removed their instructor's support items, putting them in a box his friend had supplied. They wanted to be absolutely sure that, unlike their teacher, their foe would not be able to return the tides of the battle. The triumphant students dragged their captured teacher outside of the combat zone and cheered as the robotic voice declared they had passed. The two quickly set to work on releasing their captive, who rubbed his wrists where the handcuffs had been. I'm impressed, you two. I never saw that coming. Eraserhead's black eyes peered down at them as he stood up. That wasn't just luck. That was intelligence and skill. I'm happy to see that, despite the both of you still relying heavily on your quirks. You can bode without it. Twin smiles of excitement met the praise of 1A's teacher as the three of them exited the area, headed in for the monitor room, albeit a little more bruised than when they first entered. The group in the room slowly began to grow as the other students completed their practicals, each new addition cheering for their fellow classmates. At the same time, they all collectively felt sympathy towards Kaminari and Mina, who had lost rather miserably to the incredibly intelligent and sadistic nature of Principal Nezu. While they were happy about Sero appearing to pass the exams, they weren't exactly thrilled at the idea of Mineta coming with them on the trip. Izuku was quick to suggest that his female friend buy some pepper spray for the camping trip, in case the diminutive pervert tried anything. During the 10th and final round, all of the occupants of the room felt relief that they had not been the ones to have gone up against the symbol of peace. The sheer destruction that the area had gone through was ridiculous. Katsuki and Todoroki managed to scrape by, finally working together and freezing All Might in place before blasting him away. The two were quick to dash out of the combat zone, ending the practical exams on a high note. The pupils of 1A were driven back to the school and were quickly administered care by the shorter healer hero. The students were shortly sent home afterwards, Katsuki and Shoto staying a little while longer to heal up. The final exams of 1A were officially over. Everyone had recovered for the most part and they met up back at school, at least physically. A gloomy attitude seemed to resolve around all of the students who had failed their practical. When Aizawa entered, he announced what the students were expecting, that the two teams and Sero, due to him being knocked out in the fight, had all failed their practicals. They were all bemoaning the loss of their privilege to go on. That wasn't until their homeroom teacher dropped a bombshell. The whole thing with those who failed not being able to come was just another logical ruse to get the heroes in training riled up. The 5 teens were quick to celebrate, the once gloomy aura now sunny and cheerful. That wasn't until Aizawa revealed that they would be receiving extra lessons in order for them to catch up. Excitement was palpable in the air for the entire day, only being amplified as the last bell tolled for the day. The 1A class was chatting amongst themselves about the trip, some of them thinking out loud about how they would need to go and look for things to prepare. The idea began to snowball until Hagakure stopped it, suggesting that they all went on a shopping spree together on their day off tomorrow. The idea was met with no resistance except for Bakugo, who couldn't be bothered, and Todoroki, who was going to visit his mother. The very next day, the majority of 1A was gathered in the Kiyoshi Ward shopping mall, all ecstatic to be on an outing together. However, the togetherness of the group quickly fell somewhat apart as they all split up into groups to look for stuff to buy, leaving Izuku all on his own. The jungle-haired boy was shocked out of his slightly dazed state at being left alone by a voice calling out his name, thinking it was just another fan of his class as the man the voice belonged to rambled on. The teen had mostly turned him out, until the man had said something about seeing him again. The hero student's body stiffened as he felt 4 fingers curl around his neck, and his eyes flicked to his peripherals, seeing a familiar face. Tomura Shigaraki was right in front of him.
Now calm down, Izuku Midoriya. I'm just an old friend you met at the mall, aren't I? So wipe that look off your face. I just want to have a simple conversation is all.
The fingers on Midoriya's throat flexed ever so slightly.
And I think it should go without saying what will happen if you try to run or fight me.
You wouldn't dare. Even if I fell victim to your quirk, a hero would be here to catch you in a matter of moments. Fierce eyes glares up at the sickly psychopath before him. In a place like this, you wouldn't be able to get away. The man admitted that he was correct, before gesturing now to all the people before him. He called them sheep, thinking they would always be safe and what easy prey they would make for him. A chill ran down Midoriya's back as he went along with the villain, having no other choice. He listened to the man ramble about how everyone was paying attention about Stain. When questioned shakenly by the teen he was holding hostage about why he was so angry, he admitted that the hero killer was not technically part of their organization, and yet had upstaged them entirely. The psychotic man turned back to question Izuku, wondering what he thought about him and Stain about their ideologies. I don't like your ideals at all. You are twisted and insane. focused on bringing chaos down in all of Japan, maybe even on a larger scale. At least with Stain, he and I shared something in common. Verdinian eyes seemed to gain an unearthly glow to them as they met crimson ones. Just like me, he was inspired by All Might. Although I cannot condone his actions, they have a better motive than what you can come up with. The boy was not expecting a laugh of relief to escape his blue-haired capture, nor the ensuing crazed rant about him. He blamed everything on All Might, the order that the symbol of peace had let bloom all over Japan. Suddenly, the figure hunched over, close to his hostage's ear.
Thank you, Izuku Midoriya, for enlightening me. Don't struggle.
Fingers tensed and clenched at the boy's attempt to struggle.
You know, I can see now what makes him think you are a worthy candidate for being a villain.
Midoriya immediately tensed up, shaking his core. Who are the people who thought that? Did that mean he was going to be kidnapped? What could he do?
You aren't like some of the others in your class. You're actually pretty smart. Not to mention that quirk of yours.
If it was possible, the young man's body seemed to tense further.
I bet you were bullied, weren't you, with your quirk? Everyone's saying you were gonna turn out to be a villain. Wouldn't it be so satisfying to watch as they cry for mercy, begging with you to stop torturing them as they did you so long ago?
The jungle-haired boy felt like his whole body was ice. Fear had taken a deep root into his heart. He was tugged up by the man and gulped silently as they thought he might be taken away, when a familiar voice called out. Momo and Jiro had found him, both noticing the position he was in. Two pairs of eyes shot over to the hooded figure, recognizing the scraggly blue hair and the crimson eyes. They both got in fighting stances, and Izuku was about to tell him to stop when he was shoved forward into them. He heard a huff as the man began to move towards the crowd. The relief he felt was stamped out to be heard by the villain's parting words.
Be ready, Izuku Midoriya. You just may be a villain yet.
Those words did him in, and the boy's knees collapsed as he began shaking full force, clinging to his classmates like a lifeline. The trio had reported the incident and the mall had been closed while the police and pro heroes performed a massive sweep of the area. Nothing came up. Izuku did his best to give Detective Nao Masama a good description of Tomura and what the conversation was about. They exited a building, meeting a familiar voice calling out to him. It was midnight. Zuku! I came as quickly as I could. I'm so glad you're okay. The woman hugged the boy from the side, genuinely worried. I wish I could have been there to help you. Even though I'm not the strongest pro, Her protege cut her off, and he just hugged her back. She shut up and silence reigned for a few moments before the student pulled away. Kayama-sensei, I want you to promise me something. Please. A serious look entered the hero's eyes, hearing the honorific following her name. If I ever become a villain, you have to stop me, okay? Don't let me hurt anyone. The words of the young male dazed Nomori for a moment. She snapped out of it and looked at Tsukahashi. The detective told her that Izuku was probably still shaken from the conversation he had with Shigaraki. The woman gently put a hand on her apprentice's shoulder. I can't make that promise, Izuku, because you will never be a villain. Blue and green eyes met each other. You may not have been my student for the longest time, but I feel as though I know you through and through. You have the heart of a true hero. Never forget that. Tears filled the teen's eyes as he gave his teacher one last hug. His name was called from behind him, causing him to turn and see his sobbing mother. The small family embraced as Inko continued to sob. The duo was driven home by a police officer, ensuring they would get home safely. That night, sleep did not come easy for young Izuku, but thanks to midnight, his dreams were at least clear. Thank you all for sticking around, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Before you leave, we just have to let you know that We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing purposes. All the information you'll need is right below here in the description, so feel free to check out all the other incredible projects that our team is working on right now. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I would like to thank everybody involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. That's it from us for today's video. So thank you for watching and have a great day.